Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Hello, everybody. I have a wonderful guest here, and I'm glad about that because I don't think I could do this one alone. Whoops, give me a quick second. Yeah, I don't think I could do this one alone. Um, Sebastian, sorry, do you have your, never mind, my bad. Again, let's try that again. So I don't think I could do this one alone, so I'm glad I have Sebastian with me. Before we start, though, I do have to, before I even introduce my guest, let me start by saying Tom Wilson sucks. Uh, Ovechkin is a bad person. Nick Dowd can go to hell. Duhaime, I don't even remember your first name because you're that unimportant. And your time in even your time in Colorado cannot save you. I think this entire team sucks so much. Let's start with that. Hello. This is Imam. I'm here with Game Over, and I've got my guest Sebastian High. Sebastian High, who is the USHL scout at Elite Prospects and a host of, or the host of Locked On NHL Prospects. Sebastian, how are we feeling?
We're feeling, I mean, could be better, right? Like we're feeling like it was not a very fun ending to a game where the Habs played very competitively in a close game,
hmm
and there was a lot of different ways to channel the anger after this one, whether it be towards individual players on the opposition side or the refereeing, which I thought was the worst in of all the games in this series by a margin, which I also think is saying something because we've
hmm
seen already some things prior to this game that were a little bit questionable, but
hmm
this one I can very much understand the fan anger. I mean, the fan in me as well was very, very angry. I grew up in Montreal. I'm definitely a Habs fan at heart, and it was not a very fun thing to follow along with in that sense.
hmm
But at the same time, there's also reasons for hope, and we're going to get to that a bit later, but we're
Yeah.
first going to just get through the emotions because there's a lot to get to here, right?
Yeah. I see a lot of the chat. Which hello, I really appreciate everybody stopping by. I know this isn't the most fun show to stop by at. So I'm very happy that you guys are here. I'm seeing a lot of doom and gloom, but I'm also seeing some positivity, a lot of we're not dead yet, and we are not dead yet because this is the Habs. But first, let's talk about the fact that the cap, and I know I'm a Habs fan, so obviously I'm so biased, but this felt like a game that was officiated so badly. Um, And we can talk a little bit more about the positive later of the fact that this penalty kill was great. I think this is one of the best defensive games that the Habs have played. I know that the shots didn't look good, but kind of we talked about this a little bit more. But right now, I think it's just people talk all about how the home crowd will drive penalties, like penalties being called. And to some extent, I understand that. That is not what happened today. Um, it truly felt like the refs were so conscious of not letting that happen that instead they let the other thing happen. Um, I'm not, I'm not even sure where to start because I'm just so frustrated, and it's a hard one to try to parse out. Um, let's start with the fact that it's Dobesh and net. You know, you can see that he is inexperienced, and you can see that he's a backup here. And I don't like mean that as an insult. It just is the way it is, especially when we have Logan Thompson in net, who looked like he was dying. And I'm glad he's not injured. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad that he's not like seriously hurt. But it's so funny the fact that like Spencer Carberry felt the need to like play mind games with the Montreal Canadiens. Like, come on, you're the top seed and you're playing the eighth seed. Give me a fucking break. Um, I know you said that like you felt frustrated through that game. To me, from the start, it was a little frustrating because I felt like it was a slower start, but it also felt like both teams were really cautious. Um, I thought that the first was played relatively well. I know that they weren't as hot coming out as they were for the first game or for the first game at the Bell Center. Um, but I thought that they were doing well. I thought they were holding their own. I thought it was a true 50-50 period. How did you feel about that first period?
Competent thoroughly on both sides. Like there
Mhm.
was nothing like truly like explorative or super creative on either side. Like you're mentioning, there was some caution on that side, but it was still like very like directly driven, like going towards like the slot in the middle of the ice. Still hard fought, but not the same kind of creativity that we saw really blossom later on in the game through the second and third periods, which was a lot more fun from a fan perspective to watch. I think the first period was very much just a your typical grinding playoff kind of period that like the teams are just playing very hard, not pretty hard hockey. But
Mhm.
later on in the game, there was more space when players got more tired to exploit, and we saw, I mean, Ivan Demidov really, really doing
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
on that first goal for the Montreal Canadiens. But going back to Jakub Dobash in net, I thought that. I mean, look, in the end, he conceded himself 3 goals on 27 shots. That
Mhm.
is a perfectly competent display in the playoffs against a first seed. Like on the surface, right? There was a really, really ugly first goal. Like that is a not just like a rookie mistake, that's like a triple A level
Yeah.
goaltending thing. Like
Yeah.
the puck's coming towards you, you gotta cover it. You don't just like like try to kick it somewhere towards the like towards like the slot. Like what are
Yeah.
you doing trying to direct it back into traffic when
Yeah.
Lane Hudson just made a terrific play? Like
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful defending from Lane Hudson to neutralize the rush. It was just a simple, simple thing for Dobesh to cover it, and clearly he was also frustrated with himself because he obviously knows immediately what that was in terms of an error, and everyone does. Like it's clear as day. Everyone who watches that game can know that is a pivotal error in terms of
Mhm.
that first Washington goal. But beyond that, I thought he played a really, really good game. Like at the one glove save he had was spectacular on
Yes.
Connor McMichael. Like
Oh, that was
really, really,
gorgeous.
really wonderful, and
Mhm.
that kept Montreal in this game. So he played like a playoff netminder. I think like he reminded me a bit of like Mike Condon in that like New York Rangers series back in the day, where clearly wasn't Carey Price. Not that like Montembeault is Carey Price. We don't have
No.
anyone of
No.
Price's caliber, but that the backup comes in and plays thoroughly competent hockey, but just isn't the difference maker in winning a game. And
Mhm.
that's something that the Habs have relied on historically in the last couple of decades that they might not have in this series. Like we'll
Yeah.
see if Montembeault comes back and how he's going to play at that point. But he was really, really good down the stretch after the Four Nations. So there's still hope on that front. But the goaltending battle right now seems to be leaning Washington's way. But getting 15 shots on goal just doesn't cut it. But at
Yeah.
the same time, like we said this off screen, I think this is as well as a team can possibly play in a like 15 shot performance, right? Like
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
played a very good game throughout.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, Romali's kind of agreeing with that is, saying that well, first of all, saying that the first period was boring, which it was. But kind of said first goal was on Dobish, second goal was pure bad luck, third goal was very good shot, but you'd kind of want to save from that distance. And I think that third goal is um that third goal is the difference between a starter and a backup. Um, right now, I think I don't know if Charlie Lindgren makes that save either. You know what I mean? And I
Mhm,
don't.
mhm.
I think that like this is just a. There's so many things that have gone unfortunately for the Habs. The loss of Carrier, man, that's a big one. If they, first of all, losing him for what? It was the. I know some of
First
the
period from
first he was he was gone.
yeah.
And then
It's a good thing it
obviously,
remained boring off.
sorry.
It was a good thing that the game remained boring in that first period with him out of the
Exactly.
game. That was key.
Exactly. And then you had Tom Wilson who charged him and it hit him high. He was at 45 degrees and it was at an angle when he hit him. So just, I'm gonna point that out. I saw some people
Right.
say it was clean, it was not, and I will not dodge on that. Um, so I'm so glad that like I'm so glad to see that they were able to hold their own even with him gone because keep in mind when Arbor Jacka was in the penalty box, at that point they have four defensemen. They have they have Caden Gooley, they have Lane Hudson, they have Mike Matheson, and they have David Savard. And let's be very honest, they're not leaning on David Savard a whole lot. I haven't taken a look honestly at the time on ice and everything like that, but um I'd be willing to guess that Mike Matheson did a lot of cardio today, as well as good hockey, but like as like actual literal cardio. Like I think that he probably did a lot of work there. Um, Trico dropped something in the chat, which Dobie dropped a quote that could get him fined, but good on him. I'm just gonna share the quote. I don't
Nice.
really know the rules. I feel like it should have been a whistle. It was kind of a scary hit, but I guess the rules don't apply for everyone in this league. I have no idea. And that is rock star shit. Good on him. That's one thing about Dovish that I think is really, really cool is he just says it. Like he just says the things that he's thinking. I'm not sure if you saw, but after the Toronto game near the end of the regular season, he was like asked a little bit. I think they were like trying to not bait him necessarily, but ask like what happened with a breakdown in front of you and like whatever happened there. And he was like, I don't pay attention to the guys in front of me that aren't from the other team. And and near the end of it, he was just kind of like, I'm tired. And then he essentially ended the interview by being like, I'm tired. And that's really cool. And then after the last game, just admitting that he was so emotional. I love that. I really just enjoy that. I feel like our players are super, that's part of the exciting thing, I think, that our players are super
Candid.
likable, candid, and likable. And I think that makes them likable is you have like I don't know, man. They're easy to cheer for. And I I hope that they can keep this series alive, even if it is for one more game, because the more games I can watch of this team and this particular group, because the group's gonna change, like every single year the group changes, and I feel like this group has something special. Um, you know what? Let's just build on that. How I know you said that, you are a fan at heart of the Canadians. How are you feeling? Like, not even just about like not about individual players necessarily, but how do you what's your feeling around this team right now?
Excitement. I mean, like we're seeing good, fun hockey in Montreal that is exciting and thrilling. They are working at the same level as the top seed in the East. They are outworking Washington in this series. They're winning more 50-50 battles, I think I would argue. Like I haven't looked at the stats, but from what I've seen, it's either very close or Montreal has more. They've just been right there in the entire series, and this is a team that wasn't expecting to make the playoffs, wasn't even hoping to make the playoffs
Mhm.
from externally. Like internally, of course, the
Yes.
hopes were there, but externally, the hope wasn't there until what? Like March,
Yeah.
maybe? Like it took a long time. Even when the Habs were in that seed, everyone was arguing they're not gonna hold it. There's
Yeah.
so many teams
The
in that
Rangers
mix.
are
It's
gonna
just
come
it's
back. Yeah.
give it 2 days and they're gone. Like,
Yeah.
don't even worry. And they just clung on to it, like, for dear life at the end, but they did, right? They made it.
Yeah.
I was at the game where, like, the final
Yes.
game against
Yes, I
Carolina. It was
saw.
the like amazing game to like witness
Yeah.
live, but like the anxiety in that building in the first period was so palpable. Like there was a lot of fear. Like this team was not expecting to be in
Mhm.
this dance, but they are. So it's a 3-1 series, and I think there's still hope in this fan base. Like the last time that we faced a 3-1 series in the first round, we know what happened,
Yeah.
and I think that also the ghosts of 2010 are on our side. There's reasons I think for there to be some jitters also for the
Mhm.
Washington Capitals, but they
Mhm.
are going back home, and it's going to be a new challenge for the Habs to win away. They've shown how good they are
Yeah.
at home, but
Yeah.
away, that final like third period performance in away games has, or finishing out in OT, like that just hasn't been there, and
Yeah.
that's been pretty consistent this season. So that's something that they're going to need to overcome. But they've been
Mhm.
showing so far this year that they can do a lot of impressive things against adversity with the most third period comebacks of any
Yeah.
team in the NHL.
Yeah.
I think that this is a very fun team to cheer for, and if they go out in the first round, it's like, oh, cool, they gave the Capitals a run for their money, but lost in 5 or 6 games. Hey, it's a really great year, like big time progress from being a top 5 pick for the last like what 3 years.
Yeah.
great step in the right direction. Next year, get back into the playoffs and try to win a round, right? Like, there's
Mhm.
a very clear next step to take, and
Mhm.
they're showing they already compete for that next step, and no one expected them to even be at the level that they're at. So I
Mhm.
think overall, it's still a good spot for the Habs to be in. I still think that like Game 6 or Game 5 is going to be a really difficult one for the Capitals to close out because
They're not
this
gonna
Habs team
lay down and die, yeah.
never say die. It's a
Yeah.
never say die attitude, and that just reverberates through every single member of the team and staff and throughout the fan base. So
Mhm.
that's a lot to go up against. But again, the Caps are going to be at home. How are the Habs going to do? It's going to be an exciting, I think, stage for a Game 5 because if it's a 3-2 series, it's kind of back up in the air.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is, and I feel like there's something to be said about those first 2 games being decided in OT. The second one was as well, right? Or no, it wasn't, it was last minute they scored,
It's
like,
just
some empty
yeah,
nets or whatever it was, but they were very close games until the very end. This one was a very close game until the very end. The
it's
s
all been tight
Yeah, and the score
except
line
for the win.
doesn't exactly. Um, so I'm just gonna go through the first period, just the rest of it. I have a few notes here. The the white flash on my face was my notes opening up. Um, so I said that, it, okay. So I know I'm obsessed with him, but I'm just gonna keep going there. I felt like Caden Gooley was one of them. I mean, it's Josh Anderson is of course one of the more physical players, but even in that period where it was all a little timid, I still felt like Kinguli was very aggressive physically to start, and I really loved it because it felt like he is starting to understand what you can get away with in the playoffs. Because there were a few there that I was like, "Eh," but they got away with a few too, so it's fine. Um, Kind of speaking of him, something else that he said earlier this series was he thought that Carrier has been our best defenseman, like just overall through the series, like in his eyes. And I agree with him. Like I think that like he's been such a quietly important part of this team. Quietly other than that first goal last game, which I'm glad he got. A kid from Quebec getting to score in the Bell Center in the playoffs. That isn't that the dream for him. So he was so excited when he got traded here. It's just nice to see that.
It's so nice, and it's such a wonderful storyline, and he's somehow, I think, like, almost like the biggest dark horse, like, important player on this team, like,
Hmm.
he's so unheralded because the minutes he plays are so shutting down and
Yeah,
uneventful that it doesn't capture the eye all the time of what he does, but the stick work, the competitiveness, the physicality, he's not a big guy, but something I've learned in my scouting over the years is that undersized players, if they have a really strong lower body and a good understanding of leverage mechanics, have advantages in many physical duels because they can get underneath opponents, get under their sticks. And when you're underneath like a big 6'4" guy, he's pretty useless. Like he got a
yeah,
flailing stick that he can kind of whack at you, right? Like
yeah.
you can get underneath and inside a player, and he's a guy that always looks to get inside contact. He's small, but he looks to play physically and gets into players rather than around them. And
Hmm.
these little details are the things that also get more important in the playoffs. So
Yeah.
I agree, he's been incredibly important. And
Hmm.
if he's back for game 5, that's a really big ad for the Habs. And if he's missing, gonna hope for
That's
big stepping up from whoever the next man in is, right? Like
hmm
Jaden Struble, like
It's
likely,
gotta
but
be.
who would the AHL call up be? I'd be kind of curious who if they would want to take a guy like Reinbacher out of that equation, but you probably want to leave him playing
Man,
the AHL playoffs after
I
missing
do not
games.
want Reinbucker around this team, around the Caps.
I agree.
I
No,
don't
like, you do not
know.
wanna touch him with Tom Wilson, but who
No.
else? Like,
But I
Logan
get,
Mailloux is not really trustworthy in a playoff environment. I wouldn't play him in a playoff series
yeah.
against the Washington Capitals.
Especially when the
I'd be
player he
curious if
would be
it'd be Adam
replacing.
Engstrom or a player like that.
Exactly, exactly. With Mayu, if he's replacing a guy like Carey, who is dependent on defensively, that's
It's
not
like
going.
it's like it's like Justin Barron with even less defensive instincts.
Yeah, we can talk about that a little bit later. I'm gonna go to the second period. Man, I can't out of every single um thing that came out of the last game, I think that we didn't really acknowledge enough that that goal that Slav scored was his first ever playoff goal. And I know that like everything else happened, and so we were like, oh, like what?
Last game.
Yeah, last game. And then
Yeah.
today he scored another one. And I think it's been so great to see his progression. He's gotten better every single game. I think he's gotten better and better every single game. That's also true for Demidov, who had that play, that power play goal was so exciting because it was Slav to Lane. So Slav got the puck to Lane. Lane got the puck to Demidov. Demidov put the puck on Slav's stick, and then the puck went into the net. And isn't that so exciting? Because the oldest player there is 21, Lane Hudson. Isn't that's hilarious?
They were saying on the Sportsnet broadcast, in the intermission that the combined age of that goal was the youngest of any Habs playoff goal since, like, 1980. It was, like, Shane Corson and like, Stéphane Richer, I think, or something like
Yeah,
that combined on it,
it's
but it was, like,
hilarious.
been a long, long time, but, like, this is a group of young players that are gonna be able to terrorize the Atlantic Division for a long time, I think, offensively. There's so much talent and creativity, and I wanna focus on that goal because it was such a thing of beauty. It
Yeah.
was not just young players combining for a playoff goal. This was young players creating a beautiful sequence to score a goal in a playoff environment, and, I think that's a different thing. That this felt
Yeah.
a lot more almost, like, artistic in terms of how the Habs are actually executing plays. Like, there's
Yeah,
real
let's
beauty
why don't
to
we
these
get back to
sequences.
this in a bit? Because I do want to go through the rest just a little bit more, and I want to give you time to talk about Demidov because I really want to hear your thoughts. I really uh for those who follow Sebastian on Twitter or you are on Blue Sky, um I really it's hilarious. I will sometimes if I have a question, I remember one time, I can't remember whose tape of plays I asked you to make and you made it and it was hilarious because it was like must have been like someone like I don't even remember who. But I appreciated it anyway. So I appreciate your opinion. I really respect your opinion on these things. And I want to give you more time to talk about that after I'm done bitching about that OV hit. Because that happened later in that period. That should have been a five. That should have been a five. To me, anybody getting anywhere near Jake Evans' head, to me, is personally a penalty right away. But specifically that one, like actually in the real world was a penalty and it should have been a 5, and I cannot believe that it was a 2.
It and the Ghoulie, like, interference call in the first being, like, equivalent in the refereeing eyes
Jesus
is
Christ.
absurd. Like,
Absolutely awful.
how many times did Jake Evans, like, spin around in a circle after that hit? Like, 3? He was just he was like a dreidel. He was just spinning around after that massive, massive hit to the head. I For me, it was a heart and mouth. Like, for you, like,
Yeah.
we've seen the injuries and especially the playoff head-to-the-head injuries with Jake Evans, and I was, like, horrified, and, like, I was begging the camera to show me
Yeah.
what how he was, and he was fine. Like, I wish they just showed him immediately that he was, like,
Yeah.
fine, but
Yeah,
they
because I
let him
was
for, like,
worried what
20
we'd
seconds
see,
before
like
panning back.
yeah, I was worried we'd
Oh
see,
my
like,
I thought it was gonna be
dazed
horrific.
yeah, I was
Yeah,
not like, kind of the look we saw in Alex Carrier's eyes after his big hit was the one I was expecting, in Jake Evans, and he looked a lot
or
less.
worse.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then they scored on that power play, so that's really good because the
and
Caps got
immediately.
all the opportunities in the world, and they did not capitalize on it, which to me is a sign of a mentally weak team. I know I'm throwing words out there, and I know I'm like being really, really abstract about these things, but I genuinely think that a team getting that many chances should get at least one. And if you haven't, you do not you're the top seed? Question mark. Okay, I see. So the period 3, I genuinely have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8, no, 8 bullet points out of that period. And I'm like, I make my bullet points and my notes as like I kind of stream of consciousness. So one of mine is one of the ones from earlier this period, just for an example, is uh power play dash Ovi is a dirty piece of shit. And the next bullet point is fuck you. capital U. So that's how my bullet points go. I noticed Slav looked really confident. Tom Wilson is going to hell. The team is very physical, and I can't think right now. And then my last note, which hilariously is great defensive work by Caden Goulian. Then I stopped taking notes, which is very me of me.
Caden Goulian played a fantastic game. I mean, like we're seeing him really emerge like
We
at
are.
this level. I think really potentially top pairing defenseman at v-
I
I
love
mean
him.
wonderful contract too.
I
He's
love him.
fantastic.
I love him. I'm going to play our ads for and move on to our second intermission. So really quickly, I do want to touch on the chat. Um, Alexander Christian points out anyone but Ovi gets a 5, and I agree with that. I think that if that's Arbor Jackeye throwing that same hit, he is out of the game, and however much of the series is left, he is out for those. So that's really fun. Um, I'm going to send us over to earlier Andrew. He is going to tell you a little bit more about Inchu Bichu, and we will be right back.
We are so excited to tell you about our new partner here at Game Over Montreal, a delightfully witchy goth and glam jewelry store making handcrafted art that varies from subtle silver to gold pieces to glamorous bespoke. Inchu Bijou is more than just a company. They've built a community through advocacy and a welcoming attitude that has made them an institution here in Montreal. Located in the historic Chateau Saint Ambroise, Inchu Bijou also runs seasonal themed markets called Maleficarum Market or Marché Maleficarum en français, where artisans from all over get together and showcase and sell their wares. Drop by 4000 Rue Saint Ambroise, Suite 278, and say hi to Astrid and the Wicked team, or head to inchubijou.com and enhance your style. The next Maleficarum Market will be on the weekend of February 8th and 9th. We'll see you there. Now, let's get back to the show, but before you do, make sure you subscribe to Game Over Montreal, Game Over Network, and smash like on this video because it really helps us out.
Going back to the stream. Hello everybody. Sorry. We are back. I am just going to shift us over to the second period. All right, there we go. Um, Sebastian and I were just talking about how uh we're trying very hard to we're both so excited about the future of this team, but also I know myself, and I know if I don't talk this out right now, I'm gonna be stewing on it for the rest of the night. I'm gonna be stewing on it for the rest of the night anyways. Like, I don't sleep very well, so I'll be thinking about this for a long time. But at least getting it out right now is really important. Um, so let's talk about fun things. Uh, let's get back to that one goal, and then we can talk a little bit just about how Ivan Demidov has looked in general. Right away, as soon as that goal happened, Sebastian was like, I can't wait to talk about Ivan Demidov. And I was like, Sebastian, I will let you talk about Ivan Demidov even no matter what had happened. But I'm glad that he gave us something exciting to talk about. I feel like he's been like Slav in that he's improved every single game too. I think with the Line A injury, he's getting so many more puck touches that it is nothing but good for him. Uh, I'll hand it over to you, Sebastian. Thoughts?
That goal was something special. I mean, when was the last time you've seen a Hab player do that kind of thing? I mean, wasn't it like Kovalev like era? Like it's been a long time since you've seen a forward be able to dance around like that. And it's always the thing I've loved with Ivan Demidov is that in terms of our scouting evaluations, he's always been kind of a mechanically flawed skater. Like in a straight line, like in a regular stride, he's not the fastest player. Doesn't have that breakaway speed from a standstill. What he does have is like truly elite lateral agility, and he used that fully on that goal. Like he just danced around in that curve, and that ability in it's called a 10 and 2 maneuver when you have your skates pretty far apart from each other and you're kind of dancing laterally. he was able to just get way far away from the Washington defender, dance all the way, and then Slavkovsky was just demanding the puck on that play. I loved that. He was banging his stick on the ice. He was confident. He knew that he was the best option. And as a left shot, it was ideal from where Demidov was at. And it just worked out perfectly. It was a really, really pretty sequence. And Slavkovsky finished that play. The future is very bright, and I mean, Ivan Demidov is, I think, a very big part of that in terms of offensive creativity and skill and being able to create something out of seemingly nothing.
Mhm.
He's one of the players that have the Habs have who can do that, and increasingly, the Habs have multiple players who can do that. When was the last
Isn't that
time that this team
so
has had
exciting?
not just like one player who can do something special in the right moment, or two or three? You have 5 or 6 in this team, and it's a young group that's only gonna be getting better in the coming seasons with more and more talent coming through the years. I mean, the Habs draft very well, I think even from just some depth picks they've made in the last,
Mhm.
like, 4 or 5 years, you're gonna get a couple NHL talents. Also means the Habs are gonna have some really nice draft capital because not everyone's gonna be able to fit into this lineup. So
Yep.
the Habs are gonna be making some trades, trading up. I wouldn't be shocked to see the Habs trading for like a top 6 piece in the offseason to try to take that step. Maybe a
Mhm.
top 4 defenseman as well to replace the impact of David Savard and bump everyone else down a slot in the lineup. I
Mhm.
think those types of moves are kind of now on the horizon. This is a team looking to now take that next step. That's so exciting as a young group to be looking to already add in like just established kinds of talent and also having the resources in terms of picks and prospects to do so.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. I think there's just future is so bright. I know everybody's high on their own supply when it comes to prospects. But I genuinely I feel like the Habs have broken my heart enough about prospects that I've gotten very careful with that and gotten very like I have my like I don't know pipe dream is necessarily the right one, but my like hope. Like I have like I really like yeah, can't forgot his name. Vincent I can't remember his name. But I have like pet little guys that I'm like, I'm not sure that that's like realistic, but I want them. But then in general,
Yeah.
I also like very much try to have a very sober look at like what we're looking at here. And I think we're looking at some good stuff, and that's so exciting. That goal, I think, first of all, it's so exciting to have like, it was just so cool to see Slav. We're all so excited about Demidov, and of course, I am so excited about Demidov too. But I really do feel like Slav is like having his moment.
Yeah.
Um, like he is not. We've all, I think, been saying this is how will he perform when the stage is big, and we are seeing him perform. That first game, honestly, the first period was rough, but right after the first, he started improving. Now, who wasn't it rough for? I saw Lane Hudson flinch away. I saw Caden Gooley flinch away. Like, it was a rough period overall. But I think everybody started improving, and Slav was a big part of that. Um, to have him be so, and I know like Tom Wilson mocked him for this, but like to see him be so expressive about like being so upset after those
Yeah.
losses, um, and then do something about it. Like he,
Yeah.
it's just it's aura. Not again, it's just like this like it's that's the kind of thing on top of the talent that makes me so excited about a player like Slavkovsky. Um I know I've been like I'm a Yuri Slavkovsky defender. Pretty much, I had that shock actually. I remember that draft and I remember having that shock and that like being really upset for a little bit and then going, nope, this kid is ours now and I am going to defend him with my life. And since then that's what I've done. I not to go back too far back into the future, but maybe really quickly, can you touch on like your thoughts on as soon as that happened? And then we can dig a little bit more into like how Slav is doing now.
Which thing happened? Sorry.
When the initial draft happened, when the drafting of
Yeah. Okay.
Slavkovsky happened, what was kind of
It was
initially?
shock at first. Like, I think
Yeah.
as everyone else, I was expecting that to be Shane Wright. I was actually like live streaming at the time, with my like at the time my the director of European scouting at Dobber Prospects, and it was just shock for both of us. We were just like flabbergasted of like,
Yeah.
wow, they actually did it.
'Cause
But
everybody
also
we'd been
immediately
hearing these
after,
rumors, right? Like, we'd all been
yeah,
hearing
yeah,
these rumors, and I was like, "Oh, it
it
must
was a
be, like, a red herring." Like, oh my god, I was in so much denial.
Absolutely, I think many people were. I don't even think like many like non-Habs fans, or just people around like the NHL weren't fully expecting this team to make that pick. I think if anything, maybe to trade down a pick or something to try to get him there. But afterwards, I think immediately my takeaway was just this is a swing on upside. It's a bold one. It's not one I would have taken necessarily at first overall, but it's a swing and it's a big one. And they're seemingly hitting on it. I mean, in a redraft in 4 years' time, is Slav going to be like the number one guy? I'm not sure. He's probably going to be like number three or number four. But at the same time, he's a guy that gets more important in the playoffs, and the number one guy might just be Lane Hudson. So you have that
Mhm.
guy anyway. So
Yeah.
can't complain too much about
You're
that
winning either
either.
way.
That's the thing, and I think that was my takeaway of that Habs draft haul overall in 2022 was like, okay, you're taking Slav, but then afterwards, and I saw that in like the Habs like draft video, I think it was Chris Boucher who was saying it, is like, okay, if you're picking the big guy at one, that allows you to take your swings on smaller guys later down in the draft. So
Mhm.
taking that and then compensating, okay, we have some physicality, we're able to add that into the fray because we need that like in this age group as well, but
Mhm.
then we can take our swings on perhaps smaller guys who play the game the right way, like Owen Beck and Lane Hudson and
Char
Vincenz
pick
Rohr,
was a
who's
little
also a player.
interesting. Yes, that's who I'm talking about. Yes, the chat.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
oh, I love Vinny Rohr. I watched him live for like 2 years in Ottawa because I was based there for my
Oh,
studies,
yeah, 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 I
and
remember.
I was constantly watching him play. It was very very fun to see him in his draft year. He was a player I was lower on, and then immediately in his D+1, I was like, ah, I see. I had like 1 year of catch up. This was like also earlier on my scouting career, but it was like a bit of a learning moment in terms of
Yeah,
the style of player he was and how underdeveloped and young he was. I didn't really put enough value into that. He was literally the youngest player in that class, and immediately in his D+1 season, I was like, oh, okay, this is immediately the
yeah.
player I would have deemed at least a third round draft pick. Like totally great swing, and he plays the game the right way. He's inside driven. He's like a mini like RHP Brendan Gallagher style
Yeah.
of like bottom six, incisive, hardworking guy with some skill and puck handling ability and speed.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's fun.
I love that guy. I especially I think I imprint on these guys where like I remember he took this really terrible hit to the head, I believe it was, or something happened and it was really terrible. And I remember just like immediately going, "Oh, that's my guy now." I don't know what
Yeah.
it is. I like Jake Evans is a big one where I like see these like guys
Mhm.
where they're not like meant to be these like and I just like it's so cool that we're on this run. I'm just like taking a second to reflect on it. Also, good night, Bernardo. Or bye, Bernardo. Not sure. Thank you so much for stopping by. And see you next game. We will be here. Yeah, but okay, to go back to it, how are we feeling about Sluff? Uh, and by we, I mean you.
I'm feeling very good about Slav. I think that he's developing very nicely. Like this is a player who's playing, I mean, at a first in a very, very good first line here down the stretch. He did the
Yes.
same thing late in the season last year. He's gonna have to learn to try to do that earlier on in the season as well. But he's just taking a long time to get ramped up. But we've also learned the most emotional Slav is the most dangerous Slav. So
Mhm.
bringing some more of that emotion in the game and like hatred for your opponent, I think is going to really elevate his game in more in the regular season as well. But we're seeing that in the playoffs. Like he is a guy that when he's going in on a forecheck, he like every time he's finishing a check, it's a like boom that just
Thunder,
like
yeah.
reverberates through the arena. Like it's really really impressive the power that this guy can generate. And he's doing this by having also lost some weight over the last couple years by just being a bit more like quick and agile on his feet, more dangerous offensively, more difficult to pin down as a puck handler, but he's still keeping that ferocity on the forecheck, and that's the kind of player that the Habs need him to be inside driven, power forward, like on the forecheck to be that first guy in that can win you the puck battles, and he's been doing that wonderfully here down the stretch for that line alongside of Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I I have this, I've made this, I'm not gonna try to explain the meme, but I've now have this bit where, like, every time somebody talks about how good the first line is, and then immediately are like, "And let's take Slav off that and put, Demidov up there." And trust me, Demidov is eventually gonna be the first on the first line. I have no doubt about that. But I'm like, you guys realize that like Slav brings something to that line that was lacking in that line. And that is why that line works so well. Um, do we not remember Josh Anderson first line? Like, do we not remember it was those two players? It was Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield. Sure, it was a younger version of them, but it was the two of them. And then Josh Anderson. And love him. Obviously, he's done great stuff this series. But I mean in general, like there is no first line that is has these elite underlying numbers since the Four Nations break without Slavkovsky. That line works because it really isn't. I mean, Nick Suzuki being the center and the brain in general, like, does mean he's driving everything, but I don't think it's like a Nathan McKinnon line where it's Nathan McKinnon and then everybody else. Like pieces are moved around that. I don't think that's how it is at all. And that is why this line works so well because they just work so well into each other. What do you see out of this three-person pairing that makes them click?
Just a great combination in terms of complementary toolkits. You have the ideal, just like kind of like profile for your number one center. You want your
Mhm.
number one center to be able to drive play, to be a really good connective passer, to bring your wingers in and link play between them. You need the center to be the key cog to connect the two sides of the ice. Weaker centers struggle more with that. You see more attacks that have just one flank or something with a good combination, but not really link up play through all three pieces. And these three players work wonderfully. They can interchange and rotate. They're comfortable in different positions. They can play different roles. They can all finish plays. Being able to like be adaptable in that sense of who takes the shot is really important for a line's adaptability and danger, and also making defenders guess because you don't
Yeah.
know who's going to take the shot. Like, sure, Caulfield is the main goal scorer, but a lot of that comes on the power play. At even strength, he's a wonderful connective passer as well. He's not a guy that just triggers
Yes.
constantly,
Yes.
constantly, constantly. He's become a wonderful like possession player, and
Yeah.
at least like this season, he's been tremendous in those
Throwing the body
facets.
too. Throwing the body.
Throwing the body, getting physically involved, and also kind of going back to talking about this line in the future. I don't think Slavkovsky is the player that you move away. I think that in terms of toolkits, in terms of profiles, you move Caulfield down to the second line. That's not to make it a demotion. In the
No.
future, you want to have a 1A, 1B line. You want to have two lines that are offensively dangerous. And with the players in the Habs system and picks that they still have and capital they have to acquire pieces,
Mhm.
this is a team that I think is going to have that pretty soon. And I think that within maybe a year and a half, because I think that Ivan Demidov still needs to fill out physically that he can kind of match that Caulfield level of like physicality and
Yeah.
that involvement, which is necessary when you're playing matchup minutes against top lines in the NHL. But within like a season and a half, I think that you're probably going to swap those two guys in order to combine like the toolkits of Demidov, Suzuki, and Slavkovsky. I think that would be perhaps like the best combination of toolkits among all forwards that the Habs
Mhm.
have in their system.
Yeah, to me, I've always I think you're gonna let like Nick and Cole have such a good connection and they seem so well attuned to one another. Is that the right English word? Attuned? Yes, they
Yes.
seem very connected. Thank you so much. I had a moment where I was like, oh, uh, anyways, but they seem so well connected to each other that I understand. But that's where you keep them together for like something like the power play, where they make those, they have that connection, they use it well. I think, and I can't remember when, where, and why I had this thought, but I remember having this thought and going, I can't wait to see what Nick Suzuki's brain and Yvonne Demidov's brain can do together. Like it
And Lane Hudson.
and Lane Hudson, it's gonna be and like I don't feel like Yuri Slavkovsky is ever gonna have that level of like elite. Like I don't think there's a lot of players who have the same IQ that Nick Suzuki has, but he has enough to keep up with that guy. You know, like it takes work to keep up with a guy like that. You don't just like go along with the ride and get places with nothing to show for it. You know, like you have to have your basis skills there. So yeah, but I've been like thinking a lot about like I've again can't remember when, why, or where, but I'm really excited to see how all those creative pieces work together. And I agree with you. I think ultimately that is the line that we're going to be going for. Just going to do a quick check in the chat. I am seeing Romelli say, which I can't believe you're saying that, Romelli. How could you? Romelli is saying that I'm one of those weird Montreal fans whose second favorite team is Toronto. How could you, Romelli? My
What an
God.
accusation.
I know. Also, goodbye, Claire. Good night. Goodbye. Um, Romelli says, I spent years in Toronto, so I followed them since. I've lived not all my life, but ever since I've been in Canada, I've been around Toronto. I've been in this area, and I have not given into the evil temptation. What are we doing here? I'll forgive you, Romelli, but hey, I'm watching you. I'm watching you. I'm gonna move us over to our third period. I'm gonna let you guys hear from Andrew about Lake St. Motel again. And we will be right back. We will be right back. We will be right back.
Looking to make awesome memories with your friends? Take some promotional pictures or videos for your business? Check out Le Saint Motel in Montreal's Sud-West borough. It's an amazing selfie studio located in Montreal's historic Chateau Saint-Ambroise, right next to Inchu Bijou. It boasts 12 plus unique decors for you to enjoy and make memories with. Hop into their iconic heart-shaped ball pit or transport yourself back in time to Expo 67. Le Saint Motel can also come to you with mobile decor setups available to rent for events, including setup and takedown, or you can head to lesaintmotel.com right now for more details, or to check out their amazing decors that are always being updated. Now, let's get back to the show, but before you do, make sure you subscribe to Game Over Montreal, Game Over Network, and smash like on this video because it really helps us out.
We are back, and my mic is unmuted. Um, excuse me. I'm drinking sparkling water, so got a little burpy there for a second. And that's great. I should be telling you guys that. That's great work by me. Um, anyways, anyways, let's talk about the man of the hour, the man of the future. I know we talked a little bit about that play in general, but Ivan Demidov, first of all, is in Montreal, and isn't that insane? Looking back, isn't that
It's
insane?
Who expected Ivan Demidov to make his NHL playoff debut in 2025? Like, no one expected him to be in North America before the fall, let
Yeah.
alone playing minutes for the Habs in the playoffs, of them being actually in this place with
Yeah.
Demidov, who also like played a role in them getting here down the stretch. I mean, like they lost against the Blackhawks, but like he did everything in his power to prevent that from happening.
Mhm.
And like it was just yeah, like he's a fantastic player. And for me, it's so wonderful as a scout because you get these pet players when they're on the team. I get my pet players when I'm watching them in their draft years. So I watch them graduate to the NHL, and many of my favorite pet players have ended up with my home team, with the Montreal Canadiens. Like Lane Hudson, like anyone who's followed me on Twitter for a long time knows that like Lane Hudson's been my boy from day one. Like I
Oh,
had
yeah.
him ranked 11th overall in his
I
draft
remember
year,
that, yeah.
and yeah, I've loved that player forever. And Ivan Demidov is a player that was just like even more special in his draft year season than Lane Hudson was to me. And from the first viewing I logged of Ivan Demidov, which was like the early summer of like before his draft year, and my first note was like, better than Mitchkov, pretty much. Like, I was just like, this player's more special, and he has more
Yeah,
special qualities, and I adored Matvei Mitchkov. He was a staple
I
at my
remember
number
this,
3 spot
yes.
in that draft, and, like, I think the Habs definitely should have selected him as well at number 5, and I was a little bit taken aback when they made that selection with David Reinbacher, but, I mean, also a very good player to have in the system for the Habs is gonna be really big, especially in the playoffs down the stretch, but, yeah, Demidov is a, like, just groundbreaking talent in his
Yeah.
creativity and what he can manufacture and his artistry. Like I'm using that word again. I use it to describe his goal, but he's such an artistic player. He paints his goals. He's to me like throwback a little bit to the classic Russian player, going back to like
Yeah.
the Summit series. There's this whole debate of the hard fought Canadian teams versus the soft like
Yeah.
artsy Russians trying to do fancy stuff and trying to do these things, but in reality, it was like truly like ahead of its time how the Russians were playing in there.
Mhm.
It was very much closer to what modern hockey is than what Team Canada was doing in that series, which was closer to like ECHL level like style of very direct, very physical. And at the same time, like I think that that Russian team had some of the most talented players of all time in terms of looking back at historical footage,
Yeah.
and Ivanov is such a throwback player in that sense. He's like Datsukian in some of his creativity. Doesn't have the same defensive aspect, and probably never will. But hey, I think if you still
No,
just have
yeah.
Datsuki handling ability, you're not complaining.
Yeah. If you were able to find players like that, like, in every single draft, we'd be searching for those guys. I think Ivan Demidov is just I feel so lucky, that we were able to have him, that, whoever the team was Columbus didn't trade that pick to the Blackhawks 'cause the Blackhawks really wanted him. He apparently really wanted to come to Montreal, but, the the
The
Mich
interviews
the
support that.
yeah, the, alleged Michkov route doesn't always work. Teams might just take the risk anyways, so I'm glad that we got him, right? Like, it's just so cool to have this guy. I'm really excited about this team. Um, we touched on it a little bit before. I'm just the fact that we're here right now and we're giving the Caps hell, and we don't even have we don't have Reinbacher playing right now. We we don't have a second line center. We have Jake Evans at 2C, and God knows I love that man, but he is not playing. He's not supposed to be 2C. Um, it's just, isn't it? It's just so cool. Isn't this cool? Isn't this so much fun? I know today kind of sucked, but isn't it fun?
It definitely sucked as an individual day, but even just looking at like the box score, it's just so much fun as you're saying. Mike Matheson played 28 minutes exactly on the dot
It's
in a playoff
hilarious.
game that didn't go to overtime. It's just funny. And like everyone had to compensate when Carey went down, of course, but like 28 minutes in a 60-minute game is just a stupid amount of work. And at the same time, you have Jake Evans as your second most used forward. He played more than Slav and Caulfield and anyone else.
That
Like
happens a
it's
stupid
just
amount, eh? That happens. I keep an eye on that because I find it so funny every single time, and I think it's
yeah,
obviously he's the
constantly.
PK, he's the bigger PKer,
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah,
why. But even with
absolutely.
that, it's hilarious.
And I think it also shows the value of Jake Evans. Like, yeah, he's playing down the depth chart, but
Oh
he's
my gosh.
playing massive minutes. He's like, you're really loading up his workload. And I look for this in prospects too. Of like, they might not be spectacular, but if you think they can be a workhorse on the PK, that's a really valuable asset that you can really lean on,
What a contract,
especially in the
eh?
playoffs.
What a
Oh my god, like,
contract.
wonderful signing, and, I mean, yeah, like, the fact that he also scored the empty net goal in game 82 of the
Yeah.
regular season to ice it was just, cherry on
Oh,
top, like,
yeah.
really, really wonderful for him, and so glad he wasn't, like, actually hurt by that hit seemingly.
I agree. It's just really nice to see. I think Marc Dumont talks about this all the time where he had a moment with Jake Evans and back when he was on the Rocket and kind of asked him about what he does really well. And Jake was like, I don't do anything like super well. It's like, but I do everything. Like I'm good at everything and I try my best to be good at everything. And I think that's the kind of player he is. Um,
Yep.
I think that's the kind of player that's so important to have on a team like this. I think Jake Evans is around Nick Suzuki's age, I want to say, around that area.
Older.
I'm not gonna look it up because my laptop will like hit me with like so much light right now if I do that. But I'm
28 is my guess.
28. You know what? You know what? Chat, let us know. But he's not that like old, he's going to be around. And these are the kind of guys that you want in a team. I feel like we saw a lot of Marc Bergevin building in these panicked ways sometimes. I think that was a big,
Reactionary.
yes, very reactionary. And it feels like that's the really exciting thing about Gorton and Hughes is I think that they have a plan. I think they've been very honest about the fact that they have a plan. And I think they were honest when they were like, today or this year, we didn't have a very set plan. We were gonna let
Yeah.
the uh the team direct us. Um,
Mhm.
and I think this is another thing where like I feel so good not just on the ice about this team, but about what else is happening. Like Marcel Louis playing his rookie um in a playoff game. A lot of coaches wouldn't have. We saw a certain coach not play his young guys
Mhm.
in a playoff run. Uh, we have, Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes, like really exciting stuff. We have our Laval is doing such cool things. It's a great time to be a Habs fan. Just really quickly, if anybody has any questions, we are running long, so I apologize. But if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. For Sebastian, or myself, I guess you could talk to me too. Um, any questions hockey related or um anything fun. Sorry, I just see something from Ramage who says anyways, both teams would lose to the Canes, and I think that's just kind of it. That makes me feel like when I get really mad at the Caps, I remember that. I'm like, yeah, both teams would lose to the Canes anyways. Trinka says Evans is turning 29. That is insane. To me, he was a lot younger than that. Nick Suzuki's turning 26. He's turning 29. Anyways, they're besties to me in my mind. Um, I'm gonna
Evans took so long to develop.
exactly, exactly. It's so much
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw some questions at you, Sebastian. Um, who are you like expecting next year? For me, this has been a question I've been asking people. Who do you expect to make the team from the AHL right out of camp? To me, I I don't know, like I don't know necessarily if it's the right move, but I think they're gonna give Reinbacher a free slot at least for a little bit. And I don't know if that's the greatest idea, but I think they're gonna try him. And as long as he doesn't get hurt, I'm okay with them trying him. But that's a big as long yes. So I just thought questions out loud, but kind of what are you thinking we'll see right out of camp?
Think like the hesitation you're showing makes a lot of sense to me. Like, I think personally, I would want to keep him in the AHL for like half a season and just to get his feet underneath him, get him going, get him into a good groove before you get into to make that jump because he just hasn't played much hockey recently, and you need him to get him some games and some minutes, and like he's been getting that just now in the AHL, and you want to keep that going. I think for a bit longer rather than playing like 14 minutes a night sheltered and maybe even targeted by opposition like fourth lines, whoever, especially physical.
Yeah.
I think instead a player that I'd be really curious of would not be Logan Mailloux. I think that giving Mailloux another bit of time and even pairing him with Reinbacher could work quite nicely for the two of them. But moving up Adam Engstrom, I've really liked what I've seen of him in Laval, and I think he's a player that could contend to make that next step. He's a wonderful skater. He has that elite mobility under him, and he's gotten quite solid defensively over
Mhm.
the years, especially relative to where he was in his draft year, where he's more of like an all offense guy who just wasn't creating very much in his minutes. He's now become like this really great two-way puck moving defenseman that I think could be a really useful like transition piece on your third pairing. Like, you can have the guy like Arbor Jack guy who isn't going to have the workload in the
Mhm.
breakout, but has that mobility that I think would pair nicely with a more physical brand of hockey.
Mhm.
But again, Reinbucker has that right shot. That's going to be an advantage, especially with David Savard
Savard going
retiring.
out, yeah.
So yeah, but we'll see what happens there. But overall, like Laval is such a fascinating and exciting team, contending for like really winning the entire trophy and the championship in the AHL because like this is a young team. It's being led by young players. It's not a
Yeah.
team with like gritty old guys leading the charge. Like we have a couple of those, yeah, but most of them are really really young.
Mhm, mhm. It's just really exciting. I I feel like there's gonna be a few prospects, I would dare to say some perhaps bigger names, who will move this summer because we talked a little bit about just how much stuff they've got right now to play with. I think I think 2C is a priority right now. Um, Hopefully right-handed defenseman would be good to have because Lane Hudson's doing well on the right when he's been asked to. We've even seen Caden Goulet play well on the right. Um, but I feel like if you can get the best out of Lane Hudson on the left, why not? Like if you can get him there, isn't that the preferable kind of solution? To me, I know that a lot of people are like handedness isn't that big of a deal. Um, in my experience, it especially for younger players, it can really mess with their game. I remember I was really concerned about the development of Caden Gooley because he was playing on the right for a long time. I believe his second or last season, he was playing on the right for most of the season.
Yeah,
Um, and I was like, no, just like
yeah,
slowly like it's a canon event and I can't stop it. Right is
yeah.
like that's a wish list item, I think. It kind of is that what you're thinking, the two positions?
Definitely the two main areas to look at. I think that they're very very clear ones to address. But interestingly, like, do the Habs re-sign Christian Dvorak? Like, I wouldn't have considered it for a long time, but this player that to me as a scout was always like my baseline as a mid player, as like he's
Yeah.
not that anymore. He's useful and dangerous and more creative. Like, this isn't just an NPC on the ice just making the standard decision that he's programmed to do. He's
Yeah.
actually exploring the game a bit more. And like this is a player that I think would be very useful to keep around because that line with Gallagher and Anderson is something I would want to actually keep as a part of the spine of this team,
Mhm.
part of the veteran core. And Jake Evans is a core piece of that spine. And I think that like just strength down the middle of the ice and the reliability at both ends is what makes this young Habs team so exciting to me as well. There's composure, maturity, and hard work ethic with these players that are just ingrained in them. That they don't happen to be coached into those types of habits and roles. They already just inhabit those, and that makes to me a very exciting team because they have the skill, they have the mentality, they have the habits.
Yeah.
What's going to hold them back? Good coaching they have as well, like good
Yeah.
management decisions. Like it seems pretty solid top to bottom. And my fan perspective, of course, is very anxious about that. Like I'm
Of
scared
course.
about it. I'm like,
Yeah.
I feel too safe. It feels just a bit too good at the moment as a fan. But for
Feels
my
like something's
scouting
gonna
view as
go
well, like
wrong. Yeah.
of course it does, right? And but from my scouting perspective as well, I can kind of access my rational brain a bit more and kind of like lean into like, okay, these are all players I've liked before they were even associated to the Habs. Like I've liked these aspects of their games before they were even Habs players. that calms me down a little bit. It's like, okay, it's not just like being high on your own stock with these players. Like, it's definitely partially that, but
Of
like it's not
course.
entirely it. There is some substance to it beyond just what we're seeing right now. There's been history to that as well in what they've done just in past years and before
Mhm.
they were picked. And everything's coming together. There's a clear vision. This team is clicking. It feels like it's kind of clockwork at times. Like
Yeah.
when things click, it's really, really, really nice hockey to watch, and
Yeah.
that's exciting moving forward.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think you know what? Let's talk about Christian Dvorak. But first, I am going to move us over to our overtime period. I'm not seeing questions in the chat, so we'll just I'll give a little. Oh my God, I should have not drank that. But I will give our chat a little minute to drop any questions. But first, I am going to throw a pitch at you guys. No, I'm going to ask you um, if you're interested in helping us, Game Over Network. Um, are you looking for a way to help a upstart media company? We're employing over 30 young journalists. We're Canadian based. We are all Canadian. If you have a few spare bucks kicking around, we would really appreciate if you could head to our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/the Game Over Network. And there you'll be able to find multiple tiers featuring different rewards for helping us grow. There's extra access, exclusive looks behind the scene, Discord benefits, which you can join our Discord anyways, merch discounts, an opportunity to give us feedback, and special live shows where you can interact with us. Of course, our chat is always a part of our show, so we appreciate anything you have in there. And if you're not able to give us any, if you don't have a few spare dollars, totally understandable. We do also have a free tier available. And like I said, you can join our Discord through there. And if you really want to help us, please make sure to click like and subscribe on YouTube. Make sure to rate us 5 stars on whatever podcast app that you listen to, because we are also on there as an audio only version. And if you want to check out Patreon, again, that's patreon.com/the Game Over Network. And you can see what we have to offer over there. So I'm going to shift us over to our overtime period. And here we are. Um, so Christian Dvorak, I fear that if the Habs have a glut of bottom 6 prospects, right? I fear that if we sign Christian Dvorak, are we taking away valuable space for a center? So like, where does Owen Beck fit in? I Listen, I don't have a huge opinion on this, but I do really I really appreciate and talk to Lauren Kelly from Elite Prospects. And one of the things that she thinks is that he is not very good on the wing. The center is where he seems to be good. So I don't know that very well, but hey, if that's how she feels, then I'm gonna blindly trust her. Sebastian's nodding along. I'm gonna blindly trust him. Um, so to me, it's a thing of with Jake Evans having been signed, can you afford to not leave a spot there, especially because Alex Newhook might be the 3C if we can find a 2C. I don't know. Like, what are your thoughts on that kind of angle to it? Or do you feel like the team is just in a window where they have to go for the best option rather than think about prospects?
I'm thinking more try to balance that a little bit, like maybe a 1-year extension on a player like Dvorak, or if the money is low, make it a 2-year deal and maybe it ends up being your 13th forward afterwards.
Mhm.
You give that slot to a younger player, but he can still be a useful guy in case of an injury if like the annual value is maybe like around the 2 million mark or a bit lower or somewhere in that range, like under 3 for sure. I think would have to be for him to stick around with Montreal because they need the cap space from his contract to use to better this team. And I think it'll be a thing of like if they want to keep that, if they want to stay in that marriage, I think they probably should. But if either side for some reason has a hesitation, then there's no reason to keep it going either. So we'll
Yeah.
see how things shake it out in the summertime. But I think with how this playoff run has happened, he's been really, really important just to get into the playoffs. Like after the Four Nations, how many goals did he score like down the stretch? Like it was way more than I thought that he'd scored in a full season this year. But
I
it
believe he
was
hit a
just like
milestone, like, after waiting forever, and then when that milestone hit, I think it was, like, something like 200, goals or something like that, and as soon as he hit that, he was like, "Okay, I can keep going now," which is hilarious of
oh,
him.
I can score again.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
Let's do
he's like
more of that
yeah,
now.
he's like, I have a
Yeah.
great bit now, my bit is done, so I can
Yeah.
do this now." Um I did see you kind of answer briefly in the chat, but I see Alexander Christian ask, "What's Jared Davidson's future? I've been impressed every time I've seen him, but he feels like he's probably a tweener." I believe your reply was it could be a useful bottom six scorer. Is that kind of uh, the extent of your thoughts on that?
He's a player that's impressed me more and more every season. He's not a guy that I watched all that much in his draft year. I wasn't all that much in when I watched his tape after he got drafted. I was like, this guy who really struggles to skate. Like, sure, he scored a lot, but I was on a very good team. As like a D+2, I think he was when he was picked. Like he was a 20-year-old scoring a lot of points. And we see a lot of those players that just don't take the next step. But in that, like after he was drafted, he played a really more competitive, dogged, middle-driven game that made him a lot more projectable to playing pro hockey, and he's been like really, really good for Laval down the stretch, like a very important like top six scorer for that team. I
Mm-hmm.
think like a bottom six scoring role is well within the possibility. Whether that's with Montreal or with another team, however, is another question entirely. Because as you mentioned, there aren't many slots open, and I see in the chat as well that Sean Farrell is a name brought up here, and he's a player I've loved watching. I was a really big fan of his in his draft year. I would have drafted him earlier than the Habs did in his draft year, and he's a very intelligent playmaker. And to start this season, I had the pang of fear of like, oh, he's an AHL lifer because he had, I believe, it was like one assist through
Yeah,
20 games this
I
season.
remember
It
that.
was
Yeah.
it was dry as anything. It was a desert. There was nothing for him in terms of scoring. And then the floodgates just have opened, and he's now among the top scorers on the team. And late in the season, it's like a multiple, like 4 point performances from him, being a really connective player, being a really important guy, just connecting everything in the offensive zone on the power play. Even strength doesn't matter. I think that there's still a possibility for him to play a bottom six capacity, but is it going to be with the Habs? I don't know. And he isn't the strongest guy, and the skating isn't a strength, and he's still a bit lean. He might take a couple more years, but for me, he's always been a player that's going to be a bottom six playmaker at some point. But it might
Mm,
only be when he's like 27 years of age, and the Habs don't have the contract space to wait that long for him.
yeah.
So he might be moved on in the meantime.
Yeah, that's the kind of something I've been hearing from folks who follow the Laval Rocket. Um, thoughts on Thorpe? Who? Sorry, I saw the full name there. It's Tyler Thorpe, I want to say.
It is. It is
Yes.
indeed.
Thoughts?
He's
Because
awesome.
Trinka says that saw Laval last week in Belleville, and Thorpe looked good. He's a beast. Don't know if he'll make it up, but he's great for the Rocket now. Is that kind of
I like him more than that. I think he's awesome. So the Habs
really?
just picked him last draft. So he
Hmm.
was a like fourth or fifth round draft selection, and he was an overager, so a D+1. But didn't have all that much scoring, but super physical and really toolsy. He's good on his feet, strong, like really good puck protection habits, and a wicked release. I watched him live twice because I went to the Habs prospect like showcase games against the like the Toronto team,
Yeah, yeah.
and he was like the biggest standout for me in those viewings. Like he was just dominant, like just
Hmm.
commanding everything. And this
Yeah,
guy just got drafted as an overager who was on no one's lists, basically.
yeah.
It's like, what? Okay, okay, wait a minute. Who is this
So
guy?
you're
And
a guy
this season,
then. You're a guy with a capital
he's
G.
yeah, like you're a guy. You're a 6'4" power forward with some good soft skill, like and playing like quick, like pacey hockey that's middle driven. Like there's a lot to like here in terms of like bottom six. Like I think his upside is like Yoel Armia plus maybe
Mhm.
in terms of role with maybe a bit more violence in his game hopefully than Yoel Armia has shown, and I think that there's maybe a bit more like just slot drive in his game. Like Armia is a bit more of a peripheral guy, or he's sticking out the net front, but he doesn't really usually have the puck in those dangerous spaces.
Mhm.
Thorpe's a guy that commands it in those areas, but hasn't been scoring loads in the WHL, but a very, very fun prospect. I think is going to be a Hab within like 2 or 3 years' time.
Yeah, you're high on him then. Uh,
Yeah.
it's really, really exciting. Seems like this regime has a I always feel weird saying regime. Front office has a good kind of draft strategy. If nothing else, they seem to pick out those guys that other teams are missing, and that's really exciting. Alexander Christian makes a great point where he says, "True sicko hours talking these type of prospects after a playoff game." And isn't that the truth? But hey, Sebastian is my prospect guy. So hey, that's his as he says in the chat, that's my thing. And here we are. I see Terry M says Kings lead the Oilers 3-1. Notorious Oilers hater. So hey, why not? Um and I for one last question, uh I'm gonna reframe it a little bit because it was a little bit more negative coming earlier. I think it was from Terry M. But uh let's say the Habs lose next game or whatever happens. Who are you cheering for these playoffs?
Ooh, good question. I think look, in terms of like storylines, it would be the St. Louis Blues if Jordan Bennington weren't on that team. So I can't really cheer for them because I don't really like that guy.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I don't know. I think like I have a soft spot for the Ottawa Senators because I lived in Ottawa for a couple years, and
Boo.
when they play the Habs, I really don't like them. But when they're playing anyone else, I have a
So
bit
we
of a
got a
soft spot
Ramelli
for them.
situation
So
here. We got a Ramelli cheering for the
but
Leafs.
against the Maple Leafs, it's so easy to cheer for them, I find. Like, against the Leafs, like, when Sanderson scored the OT goal yesterday, I cheered as if it were, like,
That's
a
true.
Habs scoring. That was very fun for me to watch, but maybe that support dies after this round, like, whenever Ottawa flies out,
Yeah.
obviously, but, yeah, I think, like, overall, I was mainly focusing on the Habs, and at this point, I'm so busy in terms of, like, the prospect sprint until the draft that I won't be like cheering for anyone in the playoffs. I'll be keeping track, watching some games, keeping along, but I don't know I'll have like the energy or the capacity to really cheer much after this.
Honestly, fair enough. For myself, I cheer for the Avs, so those are going to be my guys. And let's say that they are out anytime before the thing happens. I will simply pretend that the playoffs don't exist. I'm one of those people. I literally will, after my heart's broken by my teams, I'm done. I am not here to be a fan of the sport. I'm here to be a fan of the teams. I like the sport too. But okay, so I am going to sign off now because I do need to eat a meal eventually, and it is getting dark where Sebastian's at. So that's
Yes.
probably a sign that I need to that's probably a sign I need to be done here. But thank you so much everybody for stopping by. I hope that we had fun together. I know I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys in the chat had fun. After what was a bit of a rough game. I can't wait after this to go A, eat, and B, look at things that will make me mad on the internet. Um, and that's life. Series isn't done yet, folks, Piano Matt says. And that's it. I'm not never say die with these abs. Um, love you guys. Have a nice night. We will be, I'm not sure who it will be on after the next game, but we will be on. We'll be here, as per always. And go Habs go. Good night.